It's Energumene opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumene by.
Boylesports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boylesports, this is betting.
So, hello and welcome back to episode number 48, Mr. Groome, would you believe it, of the Champ.ie podcast 2022-2023. And it's a very good morning, Punchestown. We're going to have a look ahead to each and every one of the days of the Punchestown Festival, myself and the Golden Groom. 8 races on Punchestown's Day One, Mr. Groome, and we're going to get our teeth stuck into each and every one of them.
Very much so. Looking forward to it. A tough opener. Let's not beat around the bush. The first day is a bit tricky, but there is good quality racing. It's a WillieMullins, really domination job. But looking forward to it. Always a good meeting, and we're here every day, so it's good. Absolutely.
And just looking ahead at the ground, I mean, I think there was a mill yesterday evening on your Norwegian weather forecast, Mr. Groome. You've tempted me, and I've been looking at what the Norwegians are saying. And we're scheduled 3.8 mils this morning, and after that, it's basically no rain for the rest of the week, as far as what I can see, bar a mill here or there.
Yeah, I think initially the forecast was for mixed kind of weather during the week, so a bit of rain here and there, because I was talking to Richie Galway, the racecourse manager there at Punchestown, and they were kind of hemming and hawing about when they're going to start watering, or if they are going to start watering, but it sounded like he was. But they will probably have to do that in that case for sure if there is no rain about. It's yielding. It's actually interesting because it's soft to heavy in Naas for Naas this evening. Obviously, Naas is pretty close to Punchestown, so it's obviously drying out a bit more at Punchestown.
Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a good in the description for Day One.
Yeah, I'd take a dry. Obviously, it's worth noting as well that the racing doesn't start till quite late at Punchestown. It doesn't know what it is, Punchestown. It's not a day meeting or an evening meeting. I think they call it a twilight meeting. The racing starts each day at 3:40. So plenty of drying time in between that. I would imagine it could get close to good tomorrow, actually, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 8 races on Day One, starting at 3:40. Now we want you to get your selections in. 3 winners or more to qualify for the Chalice, and we have some results to tidy up for Mayor. We'll do that for Punchestown Day 2. We're going to run a draw tomorrow, recording for what would be Wednesday. So get your selections in. 3 winners or more, 8 races to look at today, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And once again, thanks very much for all the support on the latest videos. Ronan Groome, this season has been fantastic in terms of obviously engagement, views, likes, and whatever else. 3:40 at Punchestown is the listed race for the Mayor's. 14 runners go to post over 2 miles, and yeah, you'd have to imagine she could be anything. It's probably going to be on high on many people's lists. I'd say she has the best form coming into the race.
Yeah, I mean, a big run. All-round form, I think she has the best form coming into the race. A big run over at Cheltenham to 6:30, wear it well. But prior to that, she was second at Punchestown in a listed Mayor's Hurdle to Hot Horrier, who actually ran okay as well at Fairyhouse. She was 4th there. She's a good mare. And prior to that, she was 3rd to Imperial Pass in the Moscow Flyer at Punchestown. So there's plenty of good form around the track. Ran well at Cheltenham. Probably sets the standard here. Likely to be favourite. You're just wondering what Willie has here. He's obviously thrown a few mares in. He's got Night and Day. Paul Townend's on her. And he's got Nikini as well. And they're 2 interesting mares. Nikini, you kind of have to forgive the run. I'll let you talk about her. You have to forgive the run at Cheltenham, but she could be talented on her day. C'est la vie is in there as well for Willie. We don't have prices with Boyles at the moment, so I'm reluctant to really pin myself down to one, but I think she could be anything is the one to beat.
Interesting, Paul Townend rides Night and Day, and just looking at the race, 14 runners, I have 5 probably likely winners of the race. You know, there's probably 5 that, you know, have real solid win claims here, so it is quite competitive. But the one I like is Nikiti. You mentioned it. I suppose looking at Nikiti, she had a break, didn't she? After Down Royal, she finished second to Magical Zoe. Good ground is the key to this mare. All her best form is on good ground, although she ran an absolute cracker at Down Royal on what was soft ground on that occasion. So she had a 132-day break. She shaped very well for me at Cheltenham. She went off 14-1. She wasn't without her supporters on the day. Obviously, the ground again was soft at Cheltenham, but I thought she shaped. She travelled into the race beautifully, jumped very well. She raced wide the whole way around. And I'd say the ground just caught her out. Whereas this, she's obviously going to strip fit her. She's probably the most likely improver in here, given the ground conditions and given the fact that she's reasonably likely raced this season. She's only had 4 starts over hurdles. And as I say, she's probably going to strip that little bit fitter. If I got 5-1 or bigger on Nikini, I'd be very strong on her here. I think she's a very good chance. Patrick Mullins knows her well. And I think that little bit fresher, strip and fitter, I think she's probably one of my stronger bets of the day, Mr. Groome, this Nikini, in what's the opening race. But as I say, like night and day, what do you do with her? She was pulled up last time. She won by on the bridle down at Thurles on bottomless ground. Has she had enough experience? I couldn't be looking at her in anything other than 6-1.
Yeah, that's the thing with this race. You're having to forgive a lot of runs. You've got decent mares with good form in Ireland this season, but a lot of them blotted their copybook over at Cheltenham. Now you can forgive that, I guess, because Cheltenham was a big field, the mares novice there, and it was soft ground. It was a nutritional kind of race, probably a frightening kind of experience for some of them. But that's what makes it a tricky race, I suppose. Just one more to mention before we kick on: Ladybank for Henry and Rachel. Another one you just have to forgive the run at Cheltenham, but it was only her 3rd start, so she probably has more of an excuse than the other mares who are a bit more experienced. She raced a bit keenly earlier on and just didn't finish out a race at all. She was 13th there, well beaten. But prior to that, she actually dead heated with Princess Zoe at Punchestown, and they kind of 10 legs clear. And that was a big step up from her maiden hurdle.
It was, yeah.
From her debut, So if you forgive the run at Cheltenham, which is what you have to do with a lot of these, I'd be interested to see what price she comes up when the bookies do price this one up.
Let's move on, Mr. Groome. It is the 4:15, the second race on the card, Champion Novices Hurdle, Grade 1 contest. Facile Vega, £4 higher in the official ratings to Diverge, who took a massive step forward, didn't he? On just his 3rd run over hurdles at Cheltenham to finish 3rd. Wasn't beaten all that far. What do you make of this? I mean, are you willing to stick with the favourite here, Facile Vega, or do you think Diverge has a chance of upsetting the apple tart?
Upsetting the apple cart.
That's the one.
Yeah, I do think he has a chance. I mean, Facile Vega, I guess Willie was hemming and hawing about maybe stepping him up and trip. I can see why he's gone stick to 2 miles. I think it makes sense a bit. He still races a bit keenly, and showed that at Cheltenham again, where Willie was a bit disappointed with the ride he got again. It's really interesting now, that storyline with this horse. Willie seems to love him or have huge expectation for him, and it's he's getting a bit nearly emotional about it after racing, and feels the horse hasn't been ridden to best effect the last twice now, which is just something to watch as a sidebar. Diverge was 3rd in Supreme. Obviously, Supreme was working out very well in the pocket, going off to win at Cheltenham. Fenner Cross obviously winning over, or Aintree, sorry, Fenner Cross winning a handicap hurdle there as well. He was well beaten in the Supreme, so it's probably a very good renewal. Diverge is only having his 3rd start, and probably given, he was plenty of ground to make up coming down the hill. He did so well, and finished 3rd there, ahead of in the pocket, not that far away from Facile Vega. If you take his line, like the rate at which he's improving after his last 2 starts, he could definitely get closer to Facile Vega now. And I give him a chance, yeah, definitely. Elete Tomp is there as well. He's had a good season, but has to turn around form with Diverge now, and he's had more runs than Diverge, more experience. Whereas Diverge is the less exposed type that's more inclined to improve now on only his fourth start. I don't think he's been with Willie that long. Only made his debut around Christmas time, and obviously court and distance win, which is handy as well. So I give him a chance for sure. If I was having a bet in the race, I'd probably think the prices are about right, but he'd be my way in, around 7-2.
I do think the prices are right. If you were getting 4-1, verging 9-2 about Diverge, I mean, if the money really did come for Facile Vega, I'd actually think twice about going in on Diverge. I think there's two likely winners here. I think Elete Tomp, very disappointing in the Supreme for me. I was quite strong on his chances going into that. His form at Punchestown isn't fantastic. Looking at Facile Vega, I mean, the ground, once again, I mean, if you're working off good to yielding ground here, which is probably what it's likely to be by the time 4:15 comes along on Tuesday afternoon. Facile Vega, for me, his action always suggested he was a horse that he's a very round action. The softer ground would suit him a little bit more, but his form on, he's a 75% record on good to yielding ground. So if you actually look at his form on good ground, he seems to be quite fine, very pacey individual. I thought he'd no excuses in the Supreme in terms of, going to win the race. I thought Paul gave him an absolute peach of a ride, in truth. He got there for me. I mean, you see Supreme winners of the past for WillieMullins, they usually kick it on off the bend. They're in front turning for home and they stay there. I think he ran into a bit of a freak in Marine Nationale. I thought it was a super performance by the winner. But Diverge, as you say, coming down the hill, he was given plenty to do. He was having to make up ground coming down the hill. And he's, swung. He's jumped beautifully. As you say, that was just his third start over hurdles. Diverge, I mean, he's unproven in Ireland or Britain on these type of conditions, but he actually won on good ground in France on the flat. So he's bifrancal. You'd have to think that little bit of better ground is actually going to suit him even more. He was very impressive at Punchestown when he won. And if you were getting 9-2, 4-1 about Diverge, which I think is probably likely on the day, I think that's more than fair now. And he hasn't too much to find on ratings. And I think he can step forward again. So Diverge would be the pick for me as well. Facile Vega wasn't his best performance at Punchestown, albeit he won last season. So, yeah, I would have to say I'd be with Diverge in the second race. 450, Mr. Groome, is the big competitive handicap on the card. 18 runners. I trust you've picked the winner.
Yeah, well, this is probably the one decent betting height of the day on the opening day. It's as you say, big field handicap hurdle, 5-1 the field. With the bookmakers, I have priced it up, so that's such far. And it's tricky. Of course, it's tricky, but I came down on one just to go through a few of the principles. Like Merlin Giant is up there. He was there the day we won. We were there at Ferryhouse. It happens Grace Day. He bolted up, but he hasn't been seen since. So I'm pretty sure he might have had a setback. I'd imagine he had a setback, and I think if you look through his, although he's unexposed, there's good evidence to suggest that he needs a run first time up. Now I trust Emma will probably have him ready for this, but that just be in the back of my mind. The McManus.
He got a fair hike as well now, Ronan. He got a fair hike for.
He did, yeah, he did, and that race,
and that was on soft ground.
And it was on soft ground, and that race wasn't, for all that it looked competitive at the time, I don't think it worked out amazingly well either. Pinkerton was the horse in second, hasn't done much this season. So the McManus pair are interesting to Cow and Brazil. Definitely Brazil, I'm interested in. He's been campaigned really kind of low profile this season, stuck to his own age group. Little run on the flat last time out to get him prepped up for this.
Looks nailed on, doesn't he?
Say again?
Looks nailed on for it.
Yeah, he looks laid out for it. And he's interesting. He's definitely on my short list. And Cow is obviously a 4-year-old, but I think that's a pretty false price for him, to be honest. He was backed off the boards for the Boodles, and he hit a hurdle very hard, and he stopped straight away. But that's exactly the horse I'd like to take on, because no one can say exactly where he would have finished. Like, there's every chance he could have finished a well-held 7th or 8th, then he would have got involved with the leaders there. So the one I like, Basil, is Telecon, who bolted up a Ferryhouse for Mark Fahey. Like, he looked like he jumped in at the 2 furlong pole there.
Landed a bit of a touch, did it too?
Yes, as Jerry Hannon let everyone know in commentary that there was word for this horse. So he was back. Like, he was still a 14-1 shot, so there was only a bit of money around for him. But he fairly bolted up that day, and even screwed the last hurdle as well, and still one handy enough. He got £10 for it. He's only a 6-year-old and was his first start of the season. And Mark Fatty thinks he'd be better on decent ground as well. And it was soft enough at Ferryhouse. Like it was early in the day. So I don't know how much of the rain got into the ground, but it was raining at the time. And it was yielding to soft official going. So there's lots of reasons to believe that he could improve now. He's only a 6-year-old, as I say. He's having his first round of the season. He could come on for that. And I thought a double figure price for him was just a bit too big. So he'd be the one I'd land on for this.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you about Telecon. I think, he's obviously improving over the track. He's, in terms of the ground over jumps, certainly could bring out more improvement. And £10, very unexposed still. He's a lovely lightweight there. Ricky Doyle on board for McFahey. I'd have to agree with you, Mr. Groome. I think Telecon high on the short list for this. Just running down to the runners, Merlin Giant to be against. Tikau, I certainly would be against. I echo all of that. Tikau, very, very keen in a big field. Didn't seem to handle the atmosphere at Cheltenham. Obviously, the festival atmosphere at Punchestown on day one. The place will be buzzing once again. How will he cope with those conditions? Bialy Stock, handicap debut, could take a step forward. Hooded for the first time. Lucky Max probably has ground concerns. One Last Tango for me is probably, handicapped to his level. Pat Derlou was very, very disappointing at Cheltenham. He was one of my better fancies going into that county hurdle. I couldn't really face him after that. Tax for Max has a good course and distance record. I keep coming back to Brazil. I mean, that's the one that I think of the short price horses here, 6-1. I think it's a solid one, as you mentioned. Had a nice pipe opener on the flat. He's £5 higher than when he won the Boodles, but he hasn't had a hard season. And he looks, look at his last 2 runs were both on heavy ground where he ran into no looking back. It was a smart type, mind you. But that was down at Limerick. Leopardstown then on the flat has had the pipe opener on a bit of better ground. I think 142, there's definitely scope for improvement off that mark. I think it's a class horse in the race. And it's 6-1 now. I mean, I do think there's juice in that because I could see him going off favoured. So Brazil, I'm going to stick with Brazil, but definitely respect your selection, Telecon, in the third race on the Punchestown card, the big handicap of the day, the Killashee Hotel Handicap Hurdle Grade B. So, Ronan Group, we're on to the 525, and it is the champion chase, and it is the king, Energumene, and he is £9 higher on official ratings. It was a career best effort for me at Cheltenham, albeit plenty of people will say the race fell apart. He jumped, he travelled, everything you want to see in a 2-mile chaser, he did it, and won very, very snug at the line. That being said, how will he handle the turnaround? He handled it last year, coming from Cheltenham to Punchestown, and was very good at Punchestown.
Energumene was fine here last year. He came after Cheltenham and he won easily on good to yielding ground, which is kind of standard Punchestown ground. I think he'll be fine again. It's probably a better race, better heat than he faced last year. If Blue Lord came back to form, he's obviously a Grade 1 course and distance winner. He won the novice event at this festival. And gentleman to me, obviously, if he brings his A game on the good ground, he'll be interesting and should go and make it a good, solid test. But it's just hard to see. It's hard to see beyond Energumene. You need a below par performance from him, even with the others running to their best. And I don't think that's a given, to be honest. He's likely raced again this season, relatively, and I think he'll go and win.
I think so too. I think if he goes and backs up his performance like he did at Punchestown last season, gentleman to me has plenty on his plate. That being said, he could improve again. So it mightn't be as clear cut. It mightn't be a total romp here, but I think Energumene should go and win once again. And we'll leave it there for what is race number 4 on the Punchestown card. 6 o'clock, Mr. Groome, is the Goffs Defender Bumper. I don't suspect you're going to have any major selection in here.
I don't. No, not in a 4-year-old bumper. And no, it's strange. It's not the Land Rover anymore. The Goffs have gone to, or the Defender is the main one now. Obviously, it's a race for horses bought at that sale, and most of them, the majority of them, are having their first ever run. It's usually a good guide to the future, I guess. It's interesting, Gordon.
It's usually the Gordon Elliott race, isn't it?
Very much so, and it's interesting. He got a run into the mare there, or the filly even, Speculatrix. Usually, it's hard enough to get them out that quickly. And it's a course and distance win as well, obviously. So she should be towards the head of the betting, I guess. He's got tactical fair there for Caldwell as well. So I don't have a suggestion. It's too difficult. It's pointless, really, to be honest.
She does look the obvious one for obvious connections. Obviously, they've won it in the past as well with Petite Mouchoir. I could see Speculatrix being towards the head of affairs. She uses stamina in terms of the pedigree. I mean, I thought she stuck at it really well, as you say, over the course and distance last time. You'd have to think, there's going to be definitely more improvement with her. Harry Swan takes £5 off. She gets the allowance as well. So many unknowns. WillieMullins has won this twice in the last decade as well. So I mean, what has he in the mix here? Speculatrix, I think, will be high on the short list for many. And if she steps forward, you'd have to imagine she'd be banging the picture. I mean, Gordon has won this race 4 times in the last decade, last season with Absolute Notions. Don't be afraid of backing one of the big price here, though. I mean, Absolute Notions returned 20 to 1 or bigger last season, didn't he, in that particular race? So, right, next race, Ronan Groome, is the next of the grade ones, and it is the 6:35, and it is the Champion Novice Chase for the 3 milers this time, grade 1. And there's question marks about every single one of them for me.
Yeah, for me as well. I was doing the race last night, and I just thought, I was going through the first 3, and yeah, as you said, question marks about each. Journey with Me, I don't know if he stays 3 miles.
Interesting.
I'm not sure. I think Henry said as much at the start of the season. He suggested that maybe he's more of a middle trip kind of horse. And it's just interesting that they've forgone opportunities. They could have went to Aintree, and they could have went for the 2.5 miler at Berry House, but he's coming here for the 3 mile race, and that is interesting.
I think the ground is a big concern for me with him, though. It'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Why? What do you think he wants us? What do you?
Well, I remember speaking to Henry on the podcast early last season, and he mentioned this horse needs testing ground to be seen at his best, and I don't think that's probably changed with him. On form, I mean, look at I suppose the figures beside his name. He's the in-form horse probably coming into the race, but as you say, will he stay 3 miles? I wouldn't have the same concerns as you, I have to say. I actually thought he could improve going up and trip. Ground would be the issue for me with him, though.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. I know, I can see what you're saying. I obviously disappointing here with the 3 miles last season. I'm not saying that particularly rock solid evidence he's not going to stay now. It was only 1 go, but in my head, Henry suggested at the start of the season. I remember him saying that he could be just a horse for middle trips. So there is a question mark over it. So Gerhard and Appreciated, they've run well at Fairy House in defeat, but Sir Gerhard going back up on trip seemed to go out like a light at Cheltenham, having travelled okay into the race. Appreciated is now starting to hang to his left. Very worrying.
What do you go with it?
Yeah, I don't know. He's a kind of a strange profile horse. The 2 of them, in a way, is just injuries at key times in their careers. Sir Gerhard and Appreciate just coming out of their novice seasons, and I think it's kind of affected both of them in a way that they haven't truly been able to. Now, Sir Gerhard still doesn't have any miles in the clock, but it just probably stopped them from really getting to the top mark, or will stop them. Not saying they can't win here, but too many question marks about them. And I know it's not like a classic getaway, and I was just thinking, yeah, God, he's interesting. He's coming in fresh. It's interesting that they're going to run him like Willie already has Sir Gerhard in there for the same owner. So why would they run another horse like him? Would they not leave him off maybe for next year or whatever? He's only 7-year-old, so it's interesting that he give him the chance. And I just thought he'd be much bigger price than 5 to 1 though. Like that seems pretty on the tight side to me. So we wouldn't let that go. The one that I think is actually very interesting is Emmett Mullins' horse, Ferranilli. He's only had 1 start over hurt in the fences. Like, this is Emmett Mullins and Paul Byrne all over. Like, this campaign, and like he was winning a maiden hurdle at Limerick in March.
Aggressive.
Very much so. I love it. I have to say, it's he just go with it. And his run the last day at Cork was pretty good now. Like for a horse making his debut, finishing in between Bacchus and Chacun Pour Soi. Like, I'm not saying these horses are, they're not the same standard as they once were, but two rock solid operators. 3 miles. Obviously, Chacun Pour Soi going up to it for the first trip, but Bacchus just beat him there. And he probably ran to a decent enough standard first time out to suggest that if he kicked on from that, or if he could pick up from that, I would have him like right there in this sort of race. So I'm half tempted to have a little go at him at around the 10-1 mark, but it would only be a small play in a race full of question marks, as you say.
If you had to force me, I think Appreciated stepping up to 3 miles, Mr. Groome. They have to applied the tongue strap for the first time. I think going that slower pace. At Punchestown, he's won before. It's not a strong bet, but if it was to nail my colours to the mast, going to head sort of stuff, Appreciated, and a 7-2 would be the way I would side, as there's a lot of question marks about plenty of the others. Ferranilli, I think he's going to have to step up again to get involved here. Moving on to the 7-10. Don't suspect you're going to have a major fancy in here once again. It is, of course, the cross-country chase, the Kildare Hunt Club cross-country chase, Mr. Groome. What do you fancy?
I'm gonna leave this one to you, Basil. I have no problem with these races. I don't begrudge them at the meeting at all. There's a place for them in Punchestown for sure. I just don't get involved with them from a betting angle at all. So more than willing to just watch it. I actually find them quite entertaining to watch. So happy to sit this one out. And I don't know if you have a selection, but no
major fancy in this round of Groome. We're going to move on swiftly to the 7:45, and it is the concluding race at Punchestown, the 7:45. This flat race, and just one that I would mention here, Mr. Groome. Obviously, plenty in here that we haven't even seen on a race course. One that we've seen twice, Master Otis for Tom Mullins. Now, I think it ran into a pretty smart type and factual fact on its most recent start, second start on the race course on soft ground, which I just think returning to Punchestown at a track where ran very well on debut, finished only 4.5 lengths behind Speculatrix, as we've mentioned, who goes for the Goff's Defender bumper. I think it was a very good run on debut. Wasn't without its supporters either. Went off a single figure price. Master Otis, this son of Master Craftsman, likes to be up there on the pace. I think it travels very sweetly in its races. And if it takes a step forward once again, I mean, it would have been a nice enough winner if you take the winner out last time at Turles Factual Fact, who was owned by Rob Core. And I just think this horse, has obviously experience on the side, ran very well at Punchestown on debut. Charlie Mullins obviously taking £7 off. I don't know. I give it a bit of a squeak here, Master Otis, in the bumper at the 7:45. So that's just one to mention. Again, not a major fancy run of Groome. But look, we want you to let us know your 8 selections, 3 winners or more to enter the draw for, of course, that Boylesports €20 free bet. So do let us know your selections down below. And, of course, like and subscribe to the channel. Mr. Groome, best bet on day one of the Punchestown Festival. Best bets. We'll give you 2 or 3 if you want it. You can stick to one if you wish.
Just one for me. The 450, the Kilshee Hotel Handicap Hurdle, Telecron.
Telecron for Mr. Groome. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to go with Nakini. 5-1, I think, is more than fair. If you get 5-1 on the day, Nakini, I'd be very sweet on her chances. I think, look, she has £6 to £7 probably to find with She Could Be Anything, but I think there's plenty against She Could Be Anything. One being the ground. I'm not entirely sure she's going to enjoy the ground. Nakini will, and I think she can take another step forward at Punchestown for the very first race, and that would be my selection for day one of the Punchestown Festival. Mr. Groome will be back tomorrow morning, looking ahead to day 2 of the Punchestown Festival. But I think we can both agree it's a very tricky card for day 1.
Yeah, let's start off. One bit of advice for punters: start off easy, relax your way into this one. It's a long week, 5 days. And you got to pick your battles at Punchestown, I think, because it can be a funny type of a meeting. You can get funny results and things like that. So maybe for sure, I'm going to be targeting the handicaps this week more so than the grade ones, where you can get more funny results. So long week, take your time.
Inside the final 150 yards, this is a special pair, and it's a hands full of grace. And it's Energumene opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumene by
Boylesports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boylesports, this is betting.